That'll be my new light. Browsing your inner economist. Y'all want to hear a boring history song? Or? This is like, this could seriously be boring. I like it a lot. It would make it less boring if I could play both guitar parts at once, because the one goes. It's an old English tune. You can picture like goat humans, you know, running around the I'm a rather goat-like looking fellow myself, and I recently watched that new Chronicles of Narnia movie. Have y'all seen that? Yeah. The Goat Boy. So picture that guy, like running through Narnia. So this is about, the song's called "The New Enclosures," and people think. You know, like my Scottish and English ancestors, right? A lot of people think that all the white people that came to this country were you know, profiteers, right? And they were coming here to like exploit the land and the people and stuff like that. A lot of them were prisoners in England who were forced to come here. A lot of them were landless because the British government had taken their land through the enclosures in the mid-1600s. And there was a whole civil war, largely regarding the enclosures. And there was groups like the Levelers, which maybe you've heard of, or the Diggers. There's a bunch of these groups. The Levelers flew a green flag. They were a political movement based on the right of peasants to own land. And they teamed up with the government, with the parliament, Cromwell. Maybe you've heard of Cromwell. And they teamed up with them. And then as soon as they had beaten the king, Cromwell freaking repressed the hell out of the peasant movement, which is a classic sort of, it's like why I don't trust most Democratic politicians. You know, because it's like, yeah, but your tendency to turn on people right after you know you've gotten what you need from them. And that was what happened in the English Civil War. But the enclosures in England were the basis of migration to the United States. What became the United States? People had no land; they wanted land. There's land here. Hey, there's jobs here. And there were all these, you know, there's all these like poor peasants. And they don't know anyone who's traveling back and forth, right? And so the only people traveling back and forth are like the elite and traders and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, it's like, there's like fruit growing everywhere. And like, you don't even need to work. You know, it's the land of beauty and all this stuff. And all these people came. And then it was like, psych, it's feudalism, get to work. You know, you're mine for 10 years. And then you can own a little house. You know, we'll put you right out on the frontier. So when the natives attack because of our policies towards them, they'll get you and you'll hate them and all that. So that was the basis. And so this song is about that, but also talking about the similarities between what was going on there and what's going on right now in places in Latin America, causing migration based on labor and based on the displacement of people from their land, and all over the world, really. And looking at the English Civil War and stuff, and then looking at the emergence of the anti-corporate globalization movement in Seattle and other places, and how sort of with these similar goals and ideas. It was spoken, the common should be free, and we're ready to defend it if that's how it's gotta be. When the fences were erected, the diggers tore them down. With a green flag in the air, they built their freedom from the ground. Peace to them is freedom from the growing of the earth. They had no need to fight each other over what the land was worth. They share the common goods which were produced by stem and seed. Faith, land, and community was all that they would need. The new enclosures, just like the old. When the new model army finally crossed the River Thames, they thought they found the freedom that they pictured in their dreams. When the king was beheaded, history cracked, but Parliament was seen and Cromwell stabbed him in the back. They built their movement up and faced a crown and cross. They risked their lives for freedom because they knew what could be lost. Now they fled to the cities to sell their labor to the rich, or they were taken off the prisons or the colonies and ships. The new enclosures, just like the old. culture is destroyed, the people are controlled. The new enclosure is the same on gold. Privatize the commons, the land is bought and sold. The commons used to be a term that existed, you know, common land. In ancient Rome, in the Roman Empire, there were commons where the farmers were allowed to grow food, and then they were seized from them. They fled into Rome to work in the cities and stuff like that. Same with Britain. And all over New England, there's these commons, right, that are like city parks now. In my hometown, the Commons is a movie theater owned by a company from Utah. That's in Maryland. You need not look too far to see the common clause. The global bankers and politicians hide behind the laws. A global feudal system, the same one from before, loaded now from centuries of slavery and war. Privatizing water, putting meters on the pipes. Privatizing seeds with patents and copyrights. Manifest destiny continuing today. They fought so hard in '49, but the virus got away. The new enclosures, just like the old. In Seattle it was spoken, the commons should be free, and we're ready to defend it if that's how it's gotta be. When the bankers met to plot their course, we're there to shut them down. When they tried to hide their meetings, people followed them around. In 1999, history cracked, but the politicians and bankers came to hold our power back. It didn't take too long for us to meet that ancient fate. Crushed by guns and legislation, we fell under the weight. The new enclosure, just like the old. The culture is destroyed, the people are controlled. The new enclosure is the same on gold. Privatize the commons, the land is bought and sold. In 1649, the revolution flared. It was crushed by the army, but it never disappeared. 3.5 centuries later, they're still pushing the plan. Seizing livelihoods and cultures from the tillers of the land. Who's got the commons, the people or the state? When they come to crush your movement, will you stand or will you break? Who's got the power, what's it gonna take? Who's got the future, that's the call you gotta make. The new enclosures, just like the old.
Yeah.
So that's a little lesson in English history. You're expecting that. There's a book called The World Turned Upside Down by Christopher Hill, I think. Remember that? It's the history of the English Civil War and like the radical peasants that emerged from it and stuff. As a white person, I find it really important to dig up like the cool aspects of white history, especially like English and Scottish, because that's my history, right? But I felt like there's this like whole disconnect where I'm like, man, everyone else has like a cool history, you know. We're just all slave owners. And I like researched it and I was like, oh, the majority of white people weren't slave owners during slavery. Of course, you know. Oh, look, some of my ancestors were abolitionists. Sweet, okay, look, this is cool. You start to dig and then you realize how much like it's not just that all people's histories have been suppressed. White history is like then especially suppressed because they don't want white people to know that white people were cool at some point in the world. And speaking of that, I'm going to sing a song about white people completely destroying an entire continent.